after tonight's episode, if there is anybody, the main person that needs to have a main takeaway, girl, Sweet Tea, you top of the list. Because what we witnessed with Greg is textbook manipulation, reverse psychology, all of the above of somebody who is very dangerous to be in a relationship with. But we'll get into it, girl, Sweetie. I really hope you don't pull a Teresa and try to stay with a sorry because you want to prove everybody wrong. Because that's what Teresa over there did on New Jersey, over there staying with Louis and her love bubble, okay, to try to prove everybody wrong. And now she over there handling all his lawyer's fees because Louis is a scammer. In this situation, here it is, you in this relationship with Greg because you want to give him what he wants, and you witnessed what type of husband he was to Quad. And then you came on here thinking that you weren't going to get the same result. And then here it is. Once again, you were proved wrong. But you're going to watch that, come to the reunion, defend him, because I guarantee they're probably going to pull it up, or they should rather at the reunion talk about that scene where he literally belittled her. And if they talk about it on the reunion, we already know what it's going to be. I was angry. It wasn't her fault. I was just taking it out on her. Sweet Tea's going to say everything to try to defend him. She already was trying to defend him. I'll Watch What Happens Live, saying something like, he recently quit his job, so it was a very stressful moment. So Greg quit his job allegedly to Sweet Tea on Watch What Happens Live, y'all. So if that happened all at this time where this episode end, or like towards the end of the season, it's giving all a culmination of projection on the Sweet Tea. And because you're so young and naive and he thinks it's so sweet, Sweet Tea girl, I'm telling you, if there were ever a time to run, it's now. Don't you give that man no baby. Don't you give that no baby. All right? But let me stop going on in this whole monologue. Hey, you guys, your girl G here. Welcome back to my channel. Appreciate you for tuning in. Obviously, you can see we're getting into Married to Medicine. This was another, really good episode. Married to Medicine definitely is giving us a lot of conversation pieces, okay? And a lot of it too, we're realizing multiple of people came on this vacation, all right, trying to play each other, and they all was trying to come with a whole bunch of plans. Everybody tried to come to the table with a scheme that Ty set up.
A scheme that Todd set up for him to come to you with the bush.
But the people got played the most because heavily, you, Miss Producer, okay, on the side, you want to try and put off this blame, but you got a part in this, Miss Heavenly. You absolutely do. And then to see that everybody's ripping you a new one because of this live that you did here recently, trying to describe, what type of man it is that's going to defend his woman. Ain't no gay man, the type to, or a man that a bitch made, that are going to try to defend a person or whatever. Everybody is ripping heavily a new one. But yeah, you guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Hey, you know what to do. Go ahead and drop a like in that collection plate. Okay, go ahead and hit that like button, y'all. All right, come over here. Do your girl a favor. Hit that like button. Drop down in the comments. Let me know if you stopped by. And also let me know if you're new to my channel, where you found your girl at. Okay? So we open up the episode, picking up where we left off. King over there running up on Greg, and Greg over there doing hop, skipping, and jump. He backpedaling, popping. All right. We got Shaq in the middle of him with his old Men in Black worm looking at, and it was everybody sprinting over there. We got Quad. No. Sweet Tea over there, titties flopping. Greg, no. And she actually was coming up on King, and Quad was like, go back to your husband. Like, she was going after King. There's definitely some, errors in Sweet Tea's ways. She definitely has a little bit of I don't want to say an anger issue, but she can definitely, she's one of those people who are impulsive. That's the word I'm looking for. Impulsive. But in the midst of this fight, Greg's walking away. They're trying to talk to him. Hey, you got so much to lose. Don't do this. And then Greg, you want to say that's the type of people that they are. Because that's the kind of people that they are. What do you mean that's the type of people that they are? Sir, you were the one fighting with him. So if you're in the altercation with him, then that means as well, that's the type of person that you are. Because let's not sit here and act like you weren't doing little slick shit, okay, to King, to try to take little mini jabs at him and Quad. And King peeped them, okay? And everybody else did as well, which is why when you said that dumbass stuff of, that's why I told her to shut up, or, that you talk too much. That's why everybody was like, ugh, because for me, when I saw that, it definitely was a moment of him trying to be like, oh, Quad run her mouth. And with King being in a relationship with her, Greg was kind of like subconsciously trying to be like, you know how your girl is. Shoot, I know how she is. Shoot, I was married to her. So I know she like that with me. This shoot, she like that with you definitely. So he was trying to form a camaraderie with King. The fact that basically Quad ain't changed. Shoot, that was just she run her mouth too much. But also as well, it was a little bit of him testing just how down for Quad King is. Because when you had that conversation with King earlier, or like after that, before the fight, you were like, shoot, I hope you are the type of man to defend her. I hope you are. You sweep up off her feet. So if you hope that he's the type of man to defend her, why are you instigating that? Because you definitely were instigating. So now the King is on your ass, okay? And everybody's having to separate it. Sweet Tea, she over there, she getting consoled by Mimi. This is your covenant, okay? This is your covenant. Don't you let them break you up. So I'm wondering what conversation Mimi was having with the ladies, or either Sweet Tea or Quad behind the scene, for her to feel like, oh, they're trying to break her and Greg up. Because there would be no breaking of Greg and Sweet Tea up if they asses didn't come back on the show. But Greg and Sweet Tea, through his convincing, because this idea that Sweet Tea, she did like a live herself and talked about how Greg was discussing like, trying to help Married to Medicine ratings. Heavily was behind the scene, definitely trying to convince them to come on without any consideration of Quad's feelings, because we all know that Heavenly plays producer. And one of the problems that Heavenly has always done, and what some people who do on the show forget in the goal of trying to do what's best for the show, to make reality TV, you still forget that this is still people's real ass lives. So here it is, for you trying to strike a reality TV moment, you're still dealing with people's real emotions. You're still dealing with people's real, grudges against each other. And so, yeah, y'all want to sit here and try to use, as Heavenly said, behind us, you can help Quad keep her job. All that shit she was telling Sweet Tea, which is why my personal opinion is why Sweet Tea still has a lot of heat for Heavenly's, because you befriended that girl before this show. You befriended Sweet Tea before this show. And now all of a sudden, when y'all got all that backlash and people started telling y'all how effed up it was, now you switching on Sweet Tea, talking about, that young girl don't need to say shit to me, all that type of stuff like that. Like, and then that's when she feel like, feeling isolated, and just kind of feeling y'all always try to son her and little girl her, like all that type of stuff. Heavenly was dead ass wrong, but nonetheless, I'm wondering what conversations Mimi's being a part of for her to feel like, they're trying to break you up. And who is they? Who is they, Mimi? So, Quad is over there with what's his face, King. And King admits that Greg was like, he said that he was telling you to shut the fuck up. And she was like, me? Because everybody was having a little bit of confusion, because we obviously know that through Heavenly's Live that there was a whole bunch more of Greg going off that we didn't see. They said, Heavenly said that he was going off. So, and it also was Toya that was clarifying like, oh no, he wasn't talking to Sweet Tea, like he was talking to Quad. So it's like, you wanted to be able to spout off at the mouth while a man was present. And also too, a lot of times when men are going off and they know a woman or whatever is beside, a man is beside their woman or whatever, it's like a test to see of like, are you gonna be bros before hoes, type situation. And in this situation, King wasn't. King basically was trying to tell Greg,
not on my watch.
not on my watch. Not on my watch. All right. So now we got Phaedra over there consoling Sweet Tea. Contessa over there, way her version, you're good. Contessa over there, you're good, you're safe. Not Sweet Tea, Phaedra over there with the like, everybody was like, what the fuck is going on? Eugene and David was like, and then Simone was like, is she speaking in tongues? Like, what is going on? And like, all of a sudden, just the power of the Lord just hit you, Phaedra. And Simone was in her confessional like, now look, Phaedra, you of all people is who God chose to bring the peace and the message to Sweet Tea. Cause it sure wasn't like that 30 minutes ago when you called Shireen a bad bill bitch, which was hilarious. Greg, when he hit King with, because I know how your girl is. That was him trying to still almost put in King's face of like a sense of, I still have familiarity of who that woman is. And I'll always know who that woman is, regardless if you've been in a relationship with her, because I had her type thing. Men love to try to pull that, I had her, type energy with dudes. But yeah, everybody, they split on different boats to go back. Sweet Tea, Eugene, and who was she on the boat with? I think it was Phaedra and Shek. And Sweet Tea was like, all I told Heavenly was like, asking her like, well, why did you invite Shireen? What's the purpose of that? And she was like, shoot, I can't, get into her because like at the end of the day, shoot, I ain't trying to get no elderly abuse. And did y'all see how Greg kind of like popped up his head when she said that? And then on the other boat, obviously, you got Quad, King, and everybody just kind of realizing like maybe this was a little bit too early. We got exes on exes with new relationships and just a whole. This was exactly what they wanted though. Like when you really think about it, it was a recipe for disaster from the get-go. But this wasn't the recipe that they put together, Heavenly, Simone, Jackie. They had put, they was building their little recipe of what mess was supposed to happen. But the fact that Phaedra threw a monkey wrench in it, okay, she added a little something to the mix that was not expected. That, was adding a little extra to the pot stirring, okay? And it was okay for the pot to be stirred if it was gonna spill in Quad's lap, right? But now that's not what happened, and it's more kind of like it's reverting over there to Greg and Sweet Tea. Now it's like, oh shoot, look, like what just happened? So they make it back. Greg, Sweet Tea, they freaking haul ass back home. I want to go home. Sweet Tea over there crying and stuff after Phaedra was speaking in tongues. Lord Jesus. And so everybody just realized, this is well, this was not the best situation, right? So it's the next day. Everybody, of course, is just like, what the hell happened? Like this wasn't a good idea, And so, who is it? Heavenly, there's a scene where Heavenly and Simone basically talk to Apollo and Shireen. And they're in there basically asking Apollo, like, what do you think of Phaedra? Like, what does Phaedra think about the group? And da-da-da-da. And he was like, well, Phaedra's a lawyer. And, this is kind of like a meeting of the minds, because, like, y'all are doctors. She's a lawyer. And Heavenly and Simone kind of feel like it's we all our own, bosses, basically. We boss bitches too. So it's not like she can feel like, because they always have this thing of like, Phaedra feels like she's above us. In essence, a little bit, this was always just a stepping stone for Phaedra, point blank period, especially for Bravo. It just literally happened to be perfect timing that this was the season that Candy, decided to leave. because one, they needed some other stuff going on Real Housewives of Atlanta, because we know they've been struggling to produce this season because the shit still ain't out. We just got the preview not too long ago. So this definitely, especially with how Phaedra flew home, definitely at this point it's given they either, gave her the call, or, the contract was presented and, Phaedra just needed to get home and sign the shit, okay? But for, some of them obviously feel like, oh, she think that she's above us, she's always so distant with the group, which she is. Phaedra's always been very closed off when it comes to just presenting her life. On Real Housewives of Atlanta, she was the same way. Girl, how you pregnant and they ask you questions and you answering them like Sheree, spring, September, fall. How many months you are? Well, we gonna induce. And they were like, but girl, you only like 7-8 months. Well, they can schedule. Like, girl, like Nene said, girl, even the hood girls know when they finna have a baby. Girl, stop it. So Phaedra's always been very phony. And so Heavenly and them really just kind of feel like this was them basically calling Phaedra out. Like, she thought she was going to come over here and we basically, are the type of women to call her out. And so, yeah, Paul's like, yeah, I just really thought this was weird because shoot, at the reunion, it really seemed that, y'all were, she had a very positive experience with y'all because, of course, with the flashback, we see that Phaedra was kind of like, oh, with this group, it's definitely not as cantankerous. Had I been in this group, it's a possibility that, me and Apollo would still be married. Speaking of still be married, Apollo's a hot ass mess. And Shireen finally put the divorce on the table with Apollo because we know he is just ridiculous to be in a relationship with his Beijing beard. And so then Heavenly brings up the fact that, she's like, I apologize because, I didn't know Shek was coming. I mean, you knew she was coming and possibly she was bringing somebody, but the fact that she brought the homeboy, that's where, she messed up. And Apollo was saying that when he talked to Phaedra, she said that she didn't know Shek and him were cool, I guess, to have like a plausible deniability. But you sitting there trying to put Apollo to put it on Phaedra when the true person that you need to be mad with is your nigga Shek. Because when he talked to you and said, hey, I met Phaedra, we happened to cross each other's paths at this, speed dating event, it was up to him because you're the one, as you say, y'all go to the club together. So much so, he was like, shoot, after everything happened last night, he was like, shoot, I got a car outside. We finna go to the strip club. What's up? Well, oh, word? So, yeah, Heavenly, like I said, you try to play in Phaedra's face, and basically all that happened is Phaedra hit y'all with the Uno reverse. So, speaking of Phaedra, Jackie goes to the room. Phaedra's packing, okay? She is packing. Pack like, oh, you better pack like. Hey, shout out to Erykah Badu. That's my girl, one of my spirit animals. So she's packing, checking there on his laptop. I'm assuming doing some Nigerian scammer business. And Jackie's like, wait a minute, what's up? She's like, I'm leaving. And she was like, why? Like, and Phaedra basically like, this is just some mean girl stuff. I've never been in a group of ladies like this. Like, y'all really are some mean girls. Like, this wasn't right. And I looked at Phaedra, when I looked at that screen, like, you have the absolute mitigating gall to talk about somebody is some mean girls. Now, granted, are these hoes some mean girls? Yes. But you have come from Real Housewives of Atlanta. That is Mean Girl City. Like, get the fuck out of here, Phaedra. And we still remember all the stuff that you did over there on Real Housewives of Atlanta with freaking Frack and talking about Portia getting pulled down to the dungeon from Candy and Todd. So, like, let's cut it out. So, Jackie was like, well, why don't you stay to explain to the group of everybody, how you're feeling and things like that. And she was just kind of like, no, I'm going to pack up. I'm about to get my ass on this jet. Like, that's it. So Jackie's like, are you sure this is how you want to leave? She was like, I do. And walked out. Am I tripping or did I see Shaq with a purse close that door? Y'all go watch it back. I could have swore I saw a little purse satchel situation. I don't know. Although I don't mess with Phaedra, she did clock something very much valid though, which is in her confessional, she said that these girls, anytime there's somebody new in the group, they definitely kind of really don't give them a chance. You know, they, when it comes to, as she said, the four ringleaders, which is the OGs, Heavenly, Simone, Toya, and Miss Jackie. The truth is, they very much are the core, and they make sure to keep the shit going. So what's going on in their lives really don't have to be talked about. One thing that we do need to address, it's time for Jackie to go. Jackie and Curtis, we're not discussing why the hell Curtis is gone, half the month in Dominican Republic. What you here for, Jackie? This is Married to Medicine. We get it. You kind of give the show validity in somewhat sense, but you're not the only doctor. I still feel like Alicia should come back and Audra should come back. That's just an unpopular opinion. I felt like they did not get enough time to develop, especially Alicia with what's her name, Kimmy, with her husband, because it was some shit definitely going on over there. Jackie needs to go. Heavenly needs to take a season off. You can kind of keep Simone. Simone makes me laugh. But yeah, she was valid in the right. She was like, anytime there's a new person, basically, we all know, like, anytime there's a new girl, this is like a little bit of like hazing going on, essentially, like a little initiation. But the way they were coming for Sweet Tea, it definitely was warranting the reaction that Sweet Tea gave them hoes back. And Heavily, you can't be mad about that, yeah, so everybody basically heads out. The girls do a rum tasting because Phaedra hopped on that PJ and got up out of there, all right? So the girls go rum tasting, the dudes go to do cigars. And obviously during the rum tasting, shoot, I love me some rum. For my birthday, I had when my brother asked, he said, "What you want to drink?" I said, "I'm feeling a little rummy today. I love rum." They asked me, "But you ain't drinking?" She said, "I can't do rum." She was like, "Oh, okay." So basically, Jackie explains to the girls how Phaedra felt like, "Oh, we some mean girls." And Toya was like, "Wait a minute, like, so she ain't here?" She was like, "Yeah, girl, she left." And she was like, she was like, "I can't return to the group like this." And Toya was like, "You mean y'all? She ain't hanging out with y'all?" Cause I've talked to her, whatever. I guess Toya, but also too, Phaedra, she tried to put it off on Jackie. I forgot about that. She was like, if anybody I'm most disappointed in, like, Jackie, it's you, And Jackie was kind of like, huh? And I was kind of like, huh, too. Cause I was like, what did Jackie do? And I don't know, she maybe because she feel like Jackie's kind of like the matriarch of the group or whatever. But Jackie told her right, which was, "Girl, I didn't know Apollo was coming. And then at that, I was told that you knew Apollo was coming. Did you see Phaedra was over there on mute when she said that?" All she did was, because Phaedra, I know you sitting there trying to play like, you didn't have no sense of idea that man was coming. But nonetheless, Jackie explains to the group how Phaedra felt. And then Contessa says, well, Katoi's like, "I texted her, but she didn't reply." Contessa's like, "Well, she's on the PJ, so she can reply back." And they were like, "Oh, she on a private jet?" And they were like, that plane was already booked, okay? Phaedra was going to leave regardless of what happened. I feel like she had that plane booked and ready to go because she knew what time it was. It was time for her to get back to Atlanta, all right? To start filming over there. In my opinion. Yeah, as they're drinking, of course, the dudes or the men, whatever, they over there making cigars. That's something I feel like is super cute. Rum tasting, cigars. I really felt like that was a nice activity that was different that we haven't seen. Them making cigars. But obviously the men are like, this is the worst this has ever been because the men have never really been involved. And, King, I'm glad King is making sure he differentiates to them because they're going to try to, like, maybe kind of, like, lump it all in one of, like, oh, this is kind of about, like, exes being around each other or, obviously it's awkward, being around your partner's ex and stuff like that. And he was like, that's not really the issue. For me, it was just the disrespect. Like, and which Greg definitely was disrespecting that man in a very subtle, not subtle way, on some low-key, high-key, okay? And he wanted a situation with King. He wanted some type of tense situation with him because he needs there to be animosity between, you know, them two, especially with Quad, because he cannot stand Quad. He resents Quad. A part of him, I feel like a part of the reason why Greg can't stand Quad is for the fact that he felt like his career, his money was supposed to keep a woman like Quad, who's like, you know, the baddie, a woman who would never look his way. You know, a lot of dudes with money feel like that's supposed to suffice. You know, you were supposed to stay and be happy with the life that I was providing for you, because he said, I've been taking care of you since the day that I met you. Remember? So for him, it's like, oh, I did all this shit for you, took care of you, whatever, and you up and leave? Like, how dare you? And we already know how men feel when women actually get the gumption to leave. So I feel like for him, especially that she left and then went on to still, you know, flourish, still be a part of Married to Medicine, because at the end of the day, when you think of Married to Medicine, Quad is always going to be in the conversation. So yeah, you know, King made sure to let them know, like, it was about him being disrespectful to Quad. Speaking of Greg, so we get back to Greg and Sweet Tea, y'all. So they back at home. She fixing him some water. He talking about, oh, you know, I'm just so tired. You know, it was so much going on. And she was like, yeah, me too. And he just sitting there talking like, you know, this was just too much. You know, I really wasn't prepared for that. He said, what really just pissed me off, you know, I wasn't prepared for Quad to sit there talking about, oh, you know, I'm the one that left him, you know. And then he also still felt like, girl, who are you to sit there and say like, oh, you know, I feel like Sweet Tea's the perfect woman for him. Because at the end of the day, Sweet Tea is the perfect woman for him. And the fact that Greg is getting over on Sweet Tea, for real, for real. And him realizing that she felt like, as she say, like, don't try to feel like you're superior to me. And of course, how dare you, a woman, feel like you're superior to me? Because no, how dare you? And we saw especially that with how, you know, he was like, you know, with King, you know, if that was had it not been for Shet, you know, it really would have been a fight to the death. A fight to the death. And Sweet Tea was like, it wasn't gonna be all that. And he was like, do you know him? And for me, in that moment, when Greg was sitting there saying, oh, it was gonna be a fight to the death, that was him trying to really put out in the air, put out in the universe, especially the King, that you wasn't just finna go, you know, beat my ass. Basically, like, we both was finna have, you know, a mano type thing. Because the last thing, especially with a man like Greg, wants to feel like is that, one, that he's ever gonna get beat, and two, be beat by a nigga who's with Quad. You know, like, he especially wants to assert some type of dominance, especially with how it appears between Greg and King. He knows how it looks. So he needs to make sure that he puts out there that he's, you know, it was gonna be a fight to the death, as he said it, you know. And so when Sweet Tea sister said, it ain't finna be all that, you undermined what he was trying to do, which was basically, you know, still try to make sure he put his dick on the table when it came to King. And so she was like, especially with me being there, he was like, what were you finna do? And she's like, I'm combat trained. And he's like, but you're still a woman. And she was kind of like, she was like, okay, but like in the confessional, she's like, we combat trained with men and women, so like whatever. He literally took a sip of the drink, was like, you still a woman. And she was like, don't do all that. And then she was like, either way, like, that's just my opinion, because, you know, had it not been for me, either all the other guys, you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't finna be no fight to the death logistically, because as she said, even if she wasn't there, all the other men was over there, production there. It was not finna be no, you know, gladiator, you know, only one of us leave the ring. You know, Greg needed to put out there, one, it was gonna be a fight to the death, because, you know, he already knows what the perception looks like, what the outside view looks like to everybody else, that King, with his, you know, titty muscles and all, was finna beat that ass. And he was. And then two, you know, the fact that he immediately was just kind of like, oh, that's like, you're just so naive because you don't know him. You don't know him. You just so naive. It's sweet. It's sweet. And then he took a sip of his drink. I was just like, bitch made. Just bitch made.
Who? One word. Bitches.
So she was like, don't do that. He was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? She was like, don't do that. And it pissed me off that he asked, what am I doing? Because you knew what you were doing. That, like, when people try to play stupid, and when one of my triggers is playing on my intelligence, because you knew what you were doing with the, you're just so naive, which is why men love to get with younger women, because they can always play that card. He's been subtly being very passive aggressive to her about her age, especially, you know, back at the trip when he was like, oh, you know, I keep forgetting this age gap thing, you know. Don't minimize her. Don't do that. And she was like, you don't know how to do that because that's not going to get you nowhere. Well, I'm just saying, you know, that's just so stupid to think that. Like, you know what? And so he gets up and walks away. So she goes upstairs and she was like, I'm just trying to be there for the team. And he was like, you just like, but she was like, I'm just trying to if you're trying to be there for the team, then you're supposed to listen to the leader. I said, oh, here we go. And then she was like, stop it. He was like, no, you the reason I'm like this. It's your fault. She's like, it's not my fault. He's like, if you don't want this reaction out of me, then don't say no stupid shit like that. And it's like, that's how schmoozers act. It's always your fault that I'm reacting this way. If you don't want me to act this way, then don't say nothing to piss me off. But how you act is based off of you. Like, how am I responsible for your actions? Girl, sweet tea, run. Do not sit here and stay in a relationship with that man, have a baby with that man to try to prove everybody else wrong. You are in for a rude awakening, okay? When he said that shit, oh, you get me hyped right now. You get me hyped. She was like, stop it. Like, be quiet. Because she knows it sounds crazy and it looks bad how this nigga is acting. Stop. Like, stop. Well, don't do that. Don't do that. If you want to be there for the team, you got to listen to the leader of the team. And she's like, well, you don't have to call me naive. But don't say stupid stuff like that. That is naive. Oh, you want to sit there talking about, oh, you're going to fight a grown-ass man, and I'm supposed to say that's not naive. That's not what she was alluding to. You try, then he like switched it up, saying that she's naive for feeling like she's going to run up on a man. Regardless, I don't think women should definitely get involved with men fighting. But even in that regards, you know, it was really more about the sentiments of like, okay, babe, you know I got your back. And it's not naive for her to have her own opinion. It's her opinion. It's her opinion to feel like it wasn't going to be a fight to death because it literally was 30 people around you. But Greg needed to have that swole moment. And so since she didn't, you know, allow that, he got pissed off. So, yeah, girl, sweet tea. Yeah, run. So end of the episode, basically all the couples dressed in yellow to kind of have, y'all know they always have like a little moment of solitude with everybody. So Mimi, she brings the bowl out with the lemons, okay? And it was just everybody laughed or whatever. So it basically was like a talking stick, okay? So when someone was like, yeah, you know, this is definitely a moment for all of us to come together and try to end the trip good, you know, because we all have our faults. And when Cecil said, everybody looked at him like Simone was just, I was like, well, shit, he had it right. So they all sit down. Obviously, you know, question one was about like, how do you feel about exes? What is your sentiment on exes? Jackie straight up said, don't you bring no exes around here. And you know what's really funny? Because had they brought that bitch that was with Curtis, you wouldn't have been happy about that because that's some messy shit that we've done on Bravo. Hello? Everybody remember the cookie lady? When Kenya brought on the cookie bitch? Okay? So, yeah. Right? So, Jackie understood exes hurt. Heavily understood don't bring no exes on, which is why Heavily eventually had to sit there and apologize to Quad, like, I did not consider your feelings. No, you knew what her feelings was going to be. You just didn't give a damn because and at that time, in y'all's mind, y'all was already shipping Quad off back home on that trip, right? Because Phaedra and Sweet Tea and Greg was supposed to basically be the replacement for Quad. But then after everybody lit y'all's ass up on Twitter, y'all backtracked. Y'all backpedaled and pussy popped, okay? So then, you know, Toya finally says, like, we do have to admit that we do some mean shit to each other, in which the footages showed very much they do, okay? So Quad basically was like, you know, everybody considered to say like something about like exes or whatever, but you know, all you have to do is put yourself in my shoes and it would be clear. You know, because Dr. Eugene would sit there and be like, oh, you know, we do have to consider Greg's feelings, you know, that his feelings need to be acknowledged because, you know, he is a part of the group. And it's like, is he? Is he? Because when he wasn't on, you know, y'all, the men was getting on just fine. Wasn't no issues. So is he a part of the group? Like, by virtue of, yes, how the show started with him being married to Quad. But if y'all don't interact with that nigga for real, outside of this, because Eugene admitted, like, well, you know, I'm not as close with him, you know, but his feelings should be acknowledged. But his feelings being acknowledged about the fact he would not be in this situation had he not put himself in this situation. He did that to himself. He hurt his own feelings because he had a plan to come out here and try to, you know, throw Sweet Tea in Quad's face. But then when she popped out with a nigga, okay, she popped out with a man that's taller, chocolate, look good, you know, titties out, and deeper voice. It pissed him off, which is why he said, oh, for her to sit there and talk about, oh, you know, she left me. That still pisses him off to this day that she left. Anytime a man witnesses a woman leave and then symbiotically not only moves on but does better, it pisses men off. And so when she was doing all that, he's a good man, you know, a good man, man. I've seen him with his daughter. It inspires me to throw it back, okay? She was saying, I'm gonna have a baby with this man, all right? And so, yeah, that's kind of where the episode ended, with everybody going home and kind of realizing, you know, we effed up. You know, basically bringing everybody together. Simone, Jackie, Heavily, y'all effed up. But, you know, Greg has his partners too. You need to acknowledge that you brought yourself and Sweet Tea back on this show. And so now it's like, okay, Curtis asks, well, how do we go home and, you know, try to get everything back together? And Phaedra lost cause, okay? But we're going to see next week everybody talking to Sweet Tea and Greg, with Greg, his old bitch ass, sitting there going to the police like you didn't have a part to play in that shit. Man. So, yeah, you guys, that's where the episode ended. Married to Medicine. It was a good episode. Y'all drop it in the comments. Do you feel like King was right to stand up for Quad? Do you feel like Greg has some accountability and bringing his ass on back on the show? And what do you guys feel like that scene with him and Sweet Tea revealed? Do you feel like, you know, Greg ain't changed a own bit? Because it's given he ain't changed to me. What else? Is it time for Heavily to take a break from Married to Medicine? Seeing as she bought this, you know, kind of helped create this mess of a situation. And yeah, I really think that's it, you guys. Y'all drop down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'll catch y'all hoes later. Deuces.